Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about why I think Set 5.5 is a huge success. Basically, to give you guys some sort of background, during last set, which is Set 5, I put out a video why I think Set 5 was a huge failure. To address the things that have improved during Set 5.5, I think I wanted to make this video because I think Set 5.5 absolutely turned around Set 5. And, um, you know, I just want to maybe preface this with that Set 5.5 isn't even like my favorite set. I enjoy playing Set 5.5, but it's nowhere near my favorite set. But the thing is that Set 5 was so bad and so much by far my least favorite set that the fact that Set 5.5 is really enjoyable shows you how much improvement Set 5.5 made over Set 5. So then today I want to talk about three main points I wanted to address that why Set 5.5 was so much better. So the points I want to make was they basically remove shadow items and replace with radiant items, which is a much better mechanic. They nerfed a lot of the vertical synergies across the board, and they pretty much heavily emphasized more horizontal synergies. And then finally, Set 5.5 added a lot of new mechanics that honestly needs to be kept around forever. Some of them were added during Set 5, but I'm just going to go ahead and lump it into a Set 5.5 video. So the first thing, and probably the biggest thing, is that there's no more shadow items. So I just want to give out a huge shout out to the dev team for even identifying the root cause. It wasn't super obvious to me when I was making my Set 5 video, but basically a lot of the Set 5 video and Set 5 complaints comes down to the fact that shadow items existed. So the reason why shadow items is so bad is that because almost all the shadow items are extremely unbalanced. Almost all of them are extremely inflexible. Inflexible being the fact that um, those shadow items would be amazing on one unit, but absolutely useless on other units. The example I like to use is Shadow Blue Buff Rise, which is extremely powerful on Rise and almost unusable on anyone else. Some compositions are balanced around Shadow item power. So in this case, Shadow Blue Buff Rise is another good example. The reason why Six Forgotten kept getting nerfed and the reason why Rise kept getting nerfed is the fact that Rise is so broken with Shadow Blue, so that they have to nerf base, like, the basic Rise a little bit, so that in the event that you don't, in the event that you get Shadow Blue, you don't just instantly win the game. And then shadow items is honestly not very exciting because it's like you get very many of them and they're just not very fun. So I think shadow items are just a huge problem in the set. And in set 5.5, Riot actually was able to identify this exact problem, and they removed shadow items for radiant items. And now the radiant items feel like it's way better. It feels like a chosen item system, and I think chosen is a really, really good system for TFT. It adds a lot of player agency, and it adds a lot of skill in terms of picking which radiant item. So almost all the radiant items are good, and it's almost all well balanced. So huge props to the dev team for the shadow item removal. The next one I want to talk about was towards the end of set 5, almost every single composition in the game were just 6 verticals. So I think the strongest comps in the game were 6 redeemed, 6 dawn, 6 forgone, 6 nightbringers, and then all the compositions required to commit a 2-1. For example, if you get a 2-star Aatrox, you always just play 6 redeemed. 2-star Gragas, always just 6 dawn. 2-star Warwick, always just forgotten. But now there's a lot of choices because in your late game comp, let's just say even if you're playing 6 redeemed, you don't need Aatrox, you don't need Leona. There's a lot of choices that you can do. Partially it's because it's called the 6 traits are much more well balanced and they're not super overpowered. But partially it's because of new items such as the tomes and like the emblems, the special emblems, so that you can drop Leona, you can drop Aatrox without a problem. And then, in addition to that, flex play is heavily rewarded. Riot made it so that they give you a lot of carry options. So a lot of AD carry options at 4 costs, a lot of AP carry options at 4 costs and 5 costs. So with these two combined changes, a lot of times it just means that you don't have to commit to your composition until maybe late stage 3 or early stage 4. And that makes the flexible play a lot better. And then finally, this set 5.5, Riot is super on point at fixing reroll comps. So compositions like reroll MF Cavaliers, reroll Hellions, reroll Aatrox, Callista, those comps pretty much got hotfixed, I would say, within like a week at most, which is really fast compared to their usual schedule. So huge props to the dev team for all these addressing all these things. And then finally, I think what Set 5.5 brings to the table is a lot of new mechanics that honestly should be kept forever. So I want to discuss these mechanics as evergreen mechanics. And the term evergreen mechanics comes from Magic the Gathering. And basically, it just refers to like mechanics, or in this case, keywords that can be used across every single set. Like, so set 6 might have some evergreen mechanics, including, set 7, set 8. Basically, every set from now on could have some of these mechanics. I think there's quite a few evergreen mechanics that came from set 5.5. Let me go ahead and get into them soon, but I want to also say you don't need to put every single evergreen mechanic in every set, but they definitely should like recycle some of the good ones. Okay. So oh yeah, before I get into the evergreen mechanics, I also want to bring up something that I might make a video in the future, so maybe I can introduce it here. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and I call it the TFT Storm Scale, or in this case, I call it the Phantom Scale. In here, Phantom Scale is referring to the Set 1 Phantom trait, and the Set 1 Phantom trait pretty much says it's a 2-unit trait that instantly sets a random unit on the enemy board, sets their HP to 100. So usually what happens is that the Phantom unit, literally a random unit dies right off the bat. And it's a really bad trait. It's a really stupid trait. And honestly, Riot's never going to reprint Phantom. So to describe what Storm Scale is, though, the Storm Scale is basically a ranking on how likely from 1 to 10 a mechanic is can return. So for example, what's it called? A mechanic that has a rank of 1 would very likely return in the future. A mechanic that has a rank of 10 would be extremely unlikely to return in the future. So I have some opinions on my I give you some examples on like some of the Phantom Scales I put down here. So I think, for example, item emblems, such as like Cavalier emblem, Knight emblem, Cannoneer emblem, like the ones that don't require spatulas to make. Sorry, the ones that can't be made from spatulas, like those item emblems for every single trait. I think that should get a Phantom Scale of 1. I think that should be integral to every single set. I think it should definitely appear in every single set. So I think that should have a Phantom Scale of 1. Fortune, I think Fortune is probably the most requested and most demanded and like most interesting trait for the casuals. I think Riot definitely wants to do another Fortune trait in the future, so I think it should get a Phantom Scale of 2. I think Chosen is a little bit dicey. Like Chosen, a lot of people like it, but a lot of people don't like it. To me, I like it. So I'm slightly biased towards it reappearing. So I think Chosen should have a Phantom's. Oops, I put Store Phantom. A Phantom Scale of 4. And I think Shadow Items is extremely imbalanced, extremely unfun, but Riot might try to do like a item scenario in the future where items have downsides. I think it's possible. So maybe a Phantom Scale of 8. And I think the Phantom trait is literally never gonna appear in this game ever again. It's the most hated and like some of the most unbalanced mechanics ever in TFT. So that should definitely get a Phantom Scale of 10. Okay, so with that out of the way, evergreen mechanics basically. I'm talking about mechanics that should get like a Phantom Scale of 1 and 2. So I want to talk about these that really appeal to me. So the first one was the Radiant Blessing. I think Radiant Blessing is super fun, super exciting, and it's honestly mostly balanced. Sometimes it's a little bit it's a little bit strong for reroll comps, but even then I think it's mostly balanced. And I think Radiant Blessing is not only is exciting for the player, I think it's really exciting for the viewers and for esports. For a lot of people, I think the casters, they really like to watch these pivotal moments where someone hits the Radiant Blessing really early in the game and make a comeback. And I think also playing around Radiant Blessing is a good test of skill. I think it's not super obvious how to play around that you'll get a lot of gold in the future or that you'll get a spatula in the future. So I think it's a really good test of skill. I do think an improvement would be to make Radiant Blessing public when someone actually gets the Radiant Blessing. So the next evergreen mechanic I want to talk about is the Armories and the Radiant Armories. For me, the Armory is pretty whatever, but the Radiant Armory is a very good mechanic for the similar reason as the the Radiant Blessing. This is because it gives a really good storyline for the TFT esports. When I watch my VODs and when I watch other people's streams, I pay a very I pay a very high attention to the raiding armies. That's because it's a very challenging decision that makes a huge skill impact throughout the game. Um, so like why someone takes a radiant armory could be a very exciting moment in a TFT esports. Like someone taking like a weird radiant armory and then using that to carry them to a first. I think that's a really cool storyline. And then emblems for every trait. So these new special emblems like six cannoneer. I think there's some other really wacky ones like six not just six cannoneer but like basically they have a emblem for every trait. Not just the spatula ones. I think this is a very cool and exciting way to play the game because it makes it so that sometimes you get into situations where you've literally never seen this before. Sometimes you get dropped like 2 sentinel spats, and then suddenly you can play 9 sentinels extremely easily. So by making emblems like well randomized and dropping relatively often, you can get really bizarre situations where you really have to adapt on the fly, and it's unlikely you'll play like that same game twice. So I think emblems for every trait is a really good way to spice up the game. And then finally, this isn't really a mechanic, but I want to give props to Riot anyways. I think Set 5 and Set 5.5 has it's the first time they were able to make tank items be good. So, I mean, the reason why I say this is that if you play set 1, 2, 3, 4, you know that basically every single set, you build carry items first, and then you build up 3 carry items before you make a single tank item. And then most of the games, you don't even make a tank item, you just make utility items like Shroud and Zephyr. But Set 5 changed everything. Basically, tank items are just as good as carry items, if not a little bit better in the early game. This is because Set 5, they introduced a lot of traits and a lot of units that scale with all the tank stats. To give you a comparison, Set 4 Sejuani doesn't scale with any tank items, but Set 5 Galio scales with every single tank stat. And then many of the Set 5 traits, also like Dawnbringer, Nightbringer, and Skirmishers, they all scale with tank stats, which is why I think tank items um, finally got to shine in Set 5. And I hope they don't change that for Set 6 and going onwards. I hope to see that tank items stay good and keep being good. So yeah, this is like my pretty much my summary why I think set 5 is a huge success. Like I said, I don't even think set 5 is my favorite set, but they've added so many good and so many exciting mechanics, and I think the devs honestly learned a lot so much from set 5, such as removing shadow items and removing powerful vertical synergies, that I have a lot of faith I have a lot of faith in them going forward.